Okay, for this exercise, you can see that we're going to take what we previously had, and instead of these push buttons, we want to make it so the return stroke is automatically triggered by a proximity sensor. So we're using it here an electromagnetic proximity sensor, and then this point up here is just a reference to show when the cylinder has reached its maximum stroke, or whatever point you choose for it to reach to. It will hit that reference point, and that signal is interpreted by this wave valve, this 3-2 wave valve. So here we have this manual push button wave valve. We want to switch it to the electromagnetic proximity switch. So let's double click on it. And we got to remember that, you know, in this, we had flipped this. So the button's on the right here. If I double click and open it, the button's on the left. So when I want to change part of the device to be the electromagnetic sensor, I need to click on the button on the left. I'm going to go down, and you can see, read these, the different types of inputs there. Rotary, pedal, stroke limiter. Here's a proximity sensor, but we want this proximity sensor, which is electromagnetic reference point. So there it is on that side. And then I forgot to save my changes. So there it is on the side, but it's not connected to anything. It's not connected to a reference point. So I need to make that reference point. Now this is considered a sensor reference point. So if I go in here and I type sensor, I don't see it. There's a mechanical position sensor, there's a proximity sensor. I'm in pneumatics. I need to do the drop down here, and I need to click into sensors, actually, all of them. So now I have different options. And here's the magnetic reference point. I'm gonna drag this into my screen here. And I'm gonna give it a name. You have to give it an alias here so that you can use that alias inside your diagram to connect it to a switch of some sorts. I'm gonna call this L2, just like the picture there. Now I need to set this at full extension. So how do I find it? I don't know how to find full extension. So I double click on my cylinder, I go to data, and here's my extension. It's set at 0 and as a percentage. Well, if I change it to 100%, then I exit out. My cylinder is at 100% extension. And now the indicator of its extension is this little diamond here. So I can grab this little diamond and put them on top of each other. Now it'll trigger that reference point when the cylinder reaches full extension. There's also diamond here and here on this piston. So I could put this right on the top there, and it will still match. So whichever is most convenient, I'm gonna put it on the end to match the picture. And this reference point is called L2. So now I come in here back to my DCV, and I go to variable assignment on the left. Now I have in this left box what's available for the component. In the right side is what's available for me to assign. And now I just named that reference point L2. So I'm going to look for an alias that's called L2. And sure enough, there is one that I made. So now that I'm selected on this receiver B input signal, I want to come over here to L2 and I double click on it. And that matches it up to L2 on the actual device. Okay, so now if I exit out, this is called L2. Now L2 means that when this is triggered, it's going to trigger this solenoid and it's going to push to the right and send a signal to the right pneumatic impulse valve there. Okay, so let's double click on the cylinder. We can go to data and move him back to 0% extension. And there we go at the beginning of the stroke. Now if I hit play, it's just like before. It's going to stay retracted. I can send a signal here. I'm just going to click on it once, but then the cylinder is going to reach out and it's going to touch this reference point. Okay, I slowed everything down with these flow controls. Once it hits the reference point, bam, it sends the signal, an impulse on the right side because of the solenoid, and really quickly just send a real quick impulse of air to the right, but that's enough to shift over the DCV. So we watch it again. Right when it hits, it's going to activate this 3-2 valve and let some air through. Just an impulse enough to shift this DCV back over and cause retraction.